Hello.
Hi.
Did you need me to record a backup or anything of this?
Oh, it's good.
Okay, cool.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. Thank you for willing to do this.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for reaching out. I want to make sure that I have the right mic going through. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Just making sure. Okay, cool. What's up?
I could just jump around then in terms of your career and everything.
Sure, I'm down.
I actually just watched the High Schooler's Guide to College Parties
Oh
recently.
my God. Wow. That is literally the very first movie that I ever did. I was like, I think I was 23.
Because I know that you mentioned before in another interview that it wasn't released until like way after you guys did or something.
It was like I want to say it was like 10 years later or something. It was something wild. Like all of us had done a million things since then. But yeah, it was yeah. I mean, it was a fun movie. I still talk to a lot of people on there. Um Kim Foster, who I don't remember what her name was in that movie, but she was like the long-haired brunette. She's still one of my very close friends. I just saw her a couple weeks ago.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Wasn't that still sort of relatively early on in your voiceover career too?
Yeah, oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
I know that of course it started with Full Metal, but I know when the initial D be around the same time.
You know, it's so funny. I've had a lot of people ask me about Initial D recently. And is there like a new thing that came out or something about
I
it?
don't I don't think so.
Because like that show is so long ago and so short-lived. At least for me, like, Natsuki didn't talk that much. The show was not about her. So like she just sort of showed up every now and then. And like so yeah, I feel bad because I've had a lot of people ask me questions about it and I'm like, I don't I don't remember. I don't remember when I recorded it. I don't think I really remember who the director was. Yeah, I don't I remember almost nothing about that show for some reason. Because
That's
there
the
are
same
shows that I've
case.
done where I've like played smaller roles and I still like it sticks in my memory better, but I don't know. I think that show intimidated me because I don't know anything about cars. Like
Oh,
I'm
right.
really dumb when it comes to cars. Like I mean, I know how to like change a tire. And at one point I knew how to change my oil, but like beyond that, like I don't know, like people ask me what kind of car are they driving? I'm like, uh, I don't a red one, I don't know.
Is
Yeah.
that the same case with things like Suzuka too, or do you have more of a memory of that?
I have a little bit more of a memory of that. That one really sticks in my head because it was me and Leah. Leah Clark is one of my best friends. She was actually the maid of honor at my wedding. Um, But yeah, so that sticks in my memory a little bit more for that reason, because she and I would talk about the show. Like, we never got to, you don't record together. But she and I, when we'd be hanging out, would occasionally talk about random happenings within the show. So I think that helped it stick in my mind a little better.
You know what your first more like dark, dramatic major character would have been?
Um, well, right, I mean, Nina Tucker was pretty dark, but Nina herself was very innocent and sweet. But right after that, I did Elsa DeSica in Gunslinger Girl, which was also a shorter lived character, but that was pretty tragic. Also such a good anime. Like if you guys have not seen Gunslinger Girl, it's so good. It's so good. Um, I'm trying to think after that. We did Negama after that, which was more of a comedy. I think that first, the first lead that I did that was kind of darker, I would say maybe Miharu Rokujo and oh my God, Nabari no O.
Oh yeah,
I feel like there's somebody that came before him, but that might have been. I don't think I'm trying to think of when in my career Gasai happened, because I feel like she came after CL Phantom Hive, but maybe she came before. I don't know. Uh, but yeah, I've played a lot of dark characters since.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned Navari because I think that was probably the first voice that uh like it's still your voice in my head, and like nobody ever talks about that series.
No one ever does. It's so good. It's really beautiful. It's one of the sweetest relationships I think I've ever portrayed, between him and Yoite. I really loved their relationship. Um, and Joe McDonald does such a good job as Yoite in that series. Yeah, it's a really good dramatic show. I think a lot of people sleep on that show. Highly recommend.
Wouldn't Hellgirl be around at the same time?
Mm, Hell Girl, that's the one I'm missing. That was the first one. That was the first like lead that was kind of darker. That was the one I'm missing. Oh, I missed that show. That was such a good show. I was so sad we didn't get to do the second season. But yeah, that like I was a fan of that show before I did that show because that was back in the day when anime you could get anime in Japanese way before you could get it dubbed.
Oh, right.
And I don't remember how I saw it, but my husband and I came across it and we were both huge fans. So whenever the dub came around, I was like, "Oh my God, I want this so bad." And I was lucky enough to get cast. Such a good show.
Was it hard to bring acting to that character?
Um, no, I mean, I remember feeling like that character came pretty naturally to me. I, maybe just because I had seen it already, um, and I had a little bit of understanding of her backstory, maybe. Um, the one thing I remember being difficult about that role is that it took a lot of breath to get through that monologue.
Yep.
Uh, oh, pitiful shadow lost in the darkness, because that sits in the place in my voice. It's like I'm breathy singing, essentially. And so trying to get through all of it in just one breath is really difficult. Um, I remember that always being an issue. I think I oftentimes had to kind of punch in, like I couldn't do the whole monologue in one breath. I had to like punch in to be able to finish it. Um, Depending on how the animation was for that episode. But yeah, that's the only thing I remember being a real challenge for that character.
There's been multiple too, but what do you think the darkest headspace you've had to go for anime is?
It might, it might be a tie between CL Phantom Hive and Gasai. I want to say maybe might take the lead by just a little bit, but I don't know. As the story progresses with CL, I feel like he's getting more and more disconnected from his own empathy and sympathy and humanity. Um, so I don't know. Because yeah, sadly I haven't gotten to do Gasai as much as I've gotten to do CL, so it's hard to compare. But yeah, they're both when I think of like my darkest characters, those are the two that immediately come up in my head.
Is there this is another case where people don't really know the show as much, but the scenes that you have really stand out because of what happens with the Balder Force.
Oh my God. Whoa, that's a deep cut. Yeah. Holy smokes. I have not thought about that show in so many years. Oh, yeah, man. I like blocked that trauma out just because of what she goes through. I remember Chris Kaysen directed me on that, and we were very close friends at that time. And it was very like, I remember him being really concerned, like for my mental health at the time. He was very sweet. Um, we were kind of like, I mean, as messed up as it sounds, like we were sort of I think we tried to like crack jokes with each other in between takes to try to like not get stuck in the super sadness of it. Um, yeah, that one was pretty brutal. Thankfully, that was only like what, like 2 episodes or something. But yeah, that was oh man, wow, yeah, wow. Been a while since I thought about that.
Well, I was going to say that I think for me personally that the screams that you do as her when all that's going on are probably like the most harrowing that I've heard in a dub ever. So
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, it's brutal. It's brutal, man. I full on blocked that out. Like, wow, wow, deep cut.
do you think you prefer working on more dramatic anime over comedic, or
I like being able to do both. People ask me that question a lot, or like, what type of characters do I like to play the most? What I like and what I've been lucky enough to do is being able to do all of it. I feel so lucky that I don't feel that I've ever been pigeonholed in anything. Um, I think have it being getting, I mean, I have ADD, so like that being stuck doing one thing all the time would in fact drive me crazy. Even if it was something that I loved at first, if it was just the same thing day in and day out, I think I would definitely go crazy. Um, but yeah, I've never felt that way with acting. I've always felt like I've gotten to play a really wide array of characters, and I would like to keep it that way.
who do you think that you personally relate the most to as well?
Um, I feel a part of myself in all of my characters, but probably the character that I am the most or was the most alike when I was younger, would be Maho and Beck. To the point where I even kind of dressed like her. Like there was one time that I showed up to record. I've told the story before, but there's a time that I showed up to record and I like they pull up the scene and then I'm like looking at what I'm wearing. And I think Chris Bevins might have been directing me that day. Chris Bevins and Taliesin Jaffe directed the show, but uh he's just like, "Did you cosplay as Maho today?" And I was like, "I didn't know she was gonna wear this." And I didn't know she ever wore this, but apparently I have the same freaking outfit. But yeah, I felt really connected to her. Just like growing up in two different cultures, having a brother who's like super well known for guitar, um, and just kind of like living in his shadow while also loving singing and kind of trying to find your footing in that regard. She reminded me a lot of myself in high school. Um, but yeah, I can't think of another. I mean, there's a lot of characters that I still, like I said, all of my characters, there's a piece of me in all of them. Um, little bits of me. Uh, Michael Tatum, the first time that we recorded, or the first season of Spice and Wolf, when we were getting to know our characters and stuff, he and I saw each other in the hallway and I was like, "Oh my God, you sound so good as Lawrence." And he was like, "Yes, oh my God. Yeah, and your holo is fantastic." I mean, the whole story is just essentially like our relationship minus the romance. I was like, I was like, whoa, because then it gave me that peek into insight into like, oh, that's how you see our interactions. And I guess I am um very teasing and very hard on him in many ways, eerily all loving. But yeah, so that was funny. So apparently I am similar to Holo. Uh and yeah, like they're Toka in Tokyo Ghoul is a lot like me too. I remember watching some of the episodes at home the day before I was going to start recording. And my husband knew that I was watching a show that I was going to be in, but he didn't know who I was playing. I hadn't told him. And so he kind of sat and watched a scene with me and he goes, "You the purple hair?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Yeah, that makes sense."
Well, this is early too, but another big like central character for me for your performances was Eve in Black Cat.
Oh, yes. That one was super fun too because another one of my best friends, Brandon Potter, was the lead in that. He and I have been friends since high school, and he was actually the officiant of my wedding. He and my husband are best friends as well, and we're still very close. So yeah, that one's a special one for me too. I love that one.
You still have very much affinity with Kurumu.
The thing I love about Kurumu was the songs. I love her songs.
Oh, right.
Um, yeah, because I got to do the lyric adaptation and I got to direct myself and the other ladies in the songs. So that was my favorite part of that whole show. It's a very silly show, like it's very like okay, this is just the same thing over and over again. But but the songs were dope. I really liked the songs. I still
Was
sing them to myself sometimes.
well, this is obvious too, I think, but Beck would have been the was that the first like musical anime that you got to do?
I think before that, um, the second season of Negima, we did all the openings and closings, and I was the music director for that, and I sang on a lot of them. Um, I think that was the first big music directing project that I did. I think. I think. Yeah. And then as far as singing, Beck was the first uh like big singing thing that I did. But yeah, as far as music directing, I think Negima was technically the first, I think. I think. I feel like there might have been a couple of smaller projects before then that I did, but I think that's the first like large scale that I remember.
It's cool that that you still get to keep doing that in series like Zombieland Saga.
Yes. Oh, that was so fun. That was so fun. Yeah, again, I was sad we didn't get to do the second season of that one either. Um, we at least got to act on it. But yeah, that music was really fun. I especially loved adapting the rap. That was so fun. That was kind of a dream to come true for me. I love adapting rap. It's really fun. I got to do it for One Piece Red. There's a moment where she raps in one of the songs, and they had asked me to I didn't know that it was for just the subtitles, but they asked me to adapt the songs because it turns out they wanted the subtitles to sing like a song, like so that people would be able to sing along to it in English if they wanted to, I guess, was the vibe. Um, so I provided the official subtitles, and then Amanda Lee was able to use those lyrics. She very sweetly asked my permission. She didn't have to do that, but she did ask my permission to use the lyrics for her cover album that she did of all the songs. And so she did the rap, so I had to teach it to her, which was really fun.
Was directing always something that you wanted to try doing too with dubs?
um, I just kind of fell into it. I did ADR directing first. Um, Only because Colleen Clinkenbeard had asked me to. I don't think it even crossed my mind that that was something in my wheelhouse of things that I could do, but for whatever reason, she thought I'd be good at it, so she asked me to help her direct on Moon Phase. And so I did the last 6 episodes of Moon Phase with a lot of guidance from her. And I was really lucky because all the actors in Moon Phase were like veterans, like Jason Douglas, Monica Rial, Jason Liebrecht, Lucy Christian. It was like a master class. Like honestly, my acting became astronomically better once I had ADR directed, and I could see all of these people who had been doing it for years and continue to just blow you away with their performances. I got to see, like, getting to see how they do it in the booth and see how they take direction was just like such a gift. Honestly, that's the best thing that came out of ADR directing for me. Um, and then I got to do School Rumble. Um, and then I did XXX Holic and Black Blood Brothers. School Rumble was by far my favorite. As far as directing, I definitely prefer directing comedy over drama. Comedy is way more fun. Um, but yeah, for me, it just ended up like I just, it's so much work. Directing is so much work. And I just didn't want to do it. It was too much work. And I wanted to focus more on acting and I wanted to be able to do on camera and stuff. And directing full time didn't really, account for that. But while I was doing, sorry, that was like the longest response. But while I was doing School Rumble, I was adapting the songs because I was a snob about lyrics and I didn't like how they adapted the lyrics, so I would just rewrite all the lyrics and then I would be the one directing the singer. And Colleen, who was my producer, was like, "Hey, that's like a whole other job, right? Like you should be getting paid to do that separately." I was like, "Oh, really?" I was like, "This feels like the easy part." And she was like, "Yeah, no, that's a job." And then I think she had, well, Mike McFarland had kind of been the go-to music guy um to adapt all the lyrics and to direct people. He was the music director for Beck and Beck Mongolian Chop Squad, and he kind of took me under his wing. I don't remember if it was like he and I had had a conversation about it or if Colleen told him or something. I don't remember, but it was sometime after that that he started kind of outsourcing me to help him when he had too much stuff going on because he was directing and writing full time. And so he would have me adapt songs for him. And then eventually he was just like, give everything to Brina. He's like, I don't have time, and Brina's good at it. Have her do it. And so then I kind of took over the position. It wasn't like an official position because it's not a full-time job. It's a very like project to project, but I I became the go-to person after that. And then I started training Dawn Bennett, and she kind of took over after that. And then she and Megan, uh, oh my God, I can't remember which name she goes by. Um, she has two different last names. Megan is a music person. She was in Sing a Bit of Harmony. She was incredible. Um, but the two of them kind of took over after I had my kid and I sort of stepped back. One Piece Red was the only thing I've done. Well, I guess technically I did uh Zombieland Saga after having my kid, but I had signed on before having a kid. But yeah, I don't know if I'll do more. I don't know.
Were you also like in if you were having a part in the series that you were also directing, or are you directing yourself too then?
Back in the day, yeah. I don't know. They don't really allow for that as much nowadays, from what I understand. But yeah, like in School Rumble, I directed myself as Mikoto. In Moonphase, I had to direct myself as Kaori. Was that her name?
How to? Yeah.
Kaoru, thank you. Um, you have a good memory. Uh, better than mine. But yeah, I nowadays they kind of frown upon anybody casting themselves, which I get. Makes sense.
One thing I always like to ask too with voice actresses, it's probably different for you because it seems so much easier, but do you have like a process for whenever you do boy voices?
No, I really don't. Um, I feel masculine. I've been told many times. Like when there was I worked at Chris Sabat's studio for a while at Okatron 5000. I was technically working for Funimation, but they were outsourcing whatever. But I was like directing in his
Mm.
building. And it was all men that worked there and me. And I remember all of them at one point saying that I was the manliest person that worked there. Um, I'm not exactly sure why, but I did save them from bugs a lot. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't really feel that disconnected to my masculine side. I I even like I dream as male often. Like in my dreams, I will be a male sometimes, not all the time, sometimes, and it doesn't feel that weird to me. Um, yeah, it just doesn't feel that disconnected. Like I don't feel like I don't feel like I'm making a conscious choice of like this is how a boy would do it. Like, I don't really feel like I have to think about it that much. I actually feel more uncomfortable doing like ultra femme roles, like whenever I do Mad Moxie, like that is harder for me than voicing a boy. Um, Moxie's getting a little easier now that I'm older, because she is technically a lot older than me. So there's that aspect of it too. But yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know what else to say to that.
Well, I didn't want to go back to with some other big earlier roles. Did people really bring up Priscilla from Claymore that much anymore?
Sometimes, yeah, yeah. That's a gorgeous show. I love how that show is animated. Just everything is so like silvery and gray, and then like when the battles happen, just that stark red contrast. It's gorgeous. Um, yeah, that role hurt my voice more than any other role.
Oh,
When she monsters out, that voice was like not healthy. I could not have sustained that for another season. Um, yeah, I think that that might have been the last role that I took that had difficult vocal stuff. I tend to like if I think something if I look at it on well, I don't actively pursue acting at the moment. So I don't do auditions and stuff because I'm focusing on momming. But when I would audition, if I saw that something if I had any inkling that a character was going to have a lot of like harsh yelling or any sort of like monster voice like that, I was just kind of like, I'm good. I don't want to audition. I don't want to do that. Like I remember when the auditions came for Dragon Ball with like the new female Super Saiyans, I was
oh,
just
right.
like, nope, not interested. I'm not doing that. Like more power to the people that want to do that. I don't want to do that. I'm a singer. I don't want to totally destroy my voice. I mean, Dawn does one of them, I think. Dawn Bennett does, and she's a singer. I don't know how she does it. I can. I'm too old for that, I think.
Well, what do you think the cases that you've had to alter your voice the most for anime then?
Um, I mean, Chopper is the furthest away from my voice, I think. But he doesn't hurt. It's not painful to do that voice. Uh, and funny enough, his screams are less painful than screams in my own register. Like there's something about like screaming really up here that like it I don't know. It like hits my throat in a way that doesn't hurt as much as like like me actually screaming weirdly.
Probably one that people don't really bring up that much, but again, but I love your role in Darker Than Black.
Oh, dude, talking about an underrated show. That show is so cool. So cool. I often reference that show just as far as like just a really interesting concept and like world. It's so cool. I wish more people had seen that show. Man, you are like all about the deep cuts.
Well, because when I got heavy into anime, started watching dubs, I was probably in like fourth and fifth grade, and that was around the time that like Nabari and all those shows
Yeah.
were
Mhm.
out. So
That's
and
awesome.
was wondering too with the LA based dubs that you were part of. Were you living in LA briefly, or were you
I
just
was.
going back?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Okay,
I kind of lived back and forth in LA for about 5 or 6 years. I would like spend 3 months on, 3 months off, 4 months on, 4 months off, like just kind of like at high volume seasons. I was out there more to try to do more um on camera stuff, which was also kind of funny. It was so strange. It's different now, but when I did that back in 2013 and 14, through like 2018, so I guess it was more like 4 or 5 years. Um, I they didn't in LA, they did not consider anime experience. So I got signed on to I won't say the agency because I don't want to like shit talk them. I've since had a good relationship with them. But like there was a big agency that had both a on-camera division and a voiceover division, and I signed with them hoping that I would get both, repped by both. Um, but they would only rep me for on camera, which I had way less experience. But I had a TV show on air at the time that they uh, signed me on the CW, and they refused to sign me for voiceover because they didn't think I had enough experience. At that point, I had over 200 credits, but the majority of them were anime. And so they were like, "You don't have any experience," because they don't consider anime a thing. Like they just didn't even like register as existing to them. Um, it was so confusing. It was so confusing because I was like, I've been on like I have had a guest star on 2 TV shows and now I'm, a regular on one show. And that so like 3 credits essentially, and then a bunch of like shitty indie films. Like, what? It was so confusing. Um, Now it's very different. They tend to respect that a little bit more, but yeah, it was wild. So yeah, I mostly was out there. I didn't even have an on-camera agent until I was there for like a couple of years. Or sorry, I didn't even have a voiceover agent until I was there for a couple of years. It took me a long time. And it took a director that I was working with that I had like booked this video game on my own. It took him being like, "Who's your agent?" And I was like, "I don't have one." And he was like, "That's stupid. Do you want an agent?" And I was like, "I would love one, please." And then he was like, "Yeah, okay." And so he got me signed with somebody. But that was the only way that I got in because otherwise they were like, "You've never done voiceover." What? So confusing. Again, very different these days, which is nice. It's nice to see that like things have changed for the better in that regard.
You end up getting into a SAG.
Oh yeah, I've been I'm technically, this is like a thing that you're supposed to like be secretive about, but I don't care. I'm FICOR. So
Right.
FICOR is like is a dues paying non-member. So I don't get to vote, but I am allowed to do union and non-union gigs. There are a lot of people who will work off the card, which I don't really agree with, because you're essentially lying. Um, Working off the card means that you're a full-fledged member, but you'll still do non-union work. Um, and then there are people in Texas, especially, who they'll just stay SAG eligible, which means that they are eligible to join the union, but because Texas is a right to work state, they do not have to, and they cannot be made to, like how they can in California. So they just stay SAG eligible for as long as they possibly can. But that tends to backfire if you end up booking a gig that actually records and or films in another state that is not a right to work state. Because then you're like forced to join at that moment. So that's why I just went FICOR many, many, many years ago. That was like I think 2012. I went FICOR.
Is there a special story of like the job that got you in to the union?
Uh, Trying to think what the first. I think my first union gig was The Good Guys TV show that did not last very long. It was very cute. Uh, and I had like a 5 line character on it. I think that I think that was my first union gig, but I still didn't join. I still didn't officially become FICOR until I think it was 2013 actually, because I think that's whenever yeah, that's whenever I booked uh star-crossed. And so I wanted to be able to go out to LA and audition without having to worry about it. So I just went ahead and joined. Um, and in order to continue doing anime legally, I join FICOR. So yeah.
For a lot of the roles that you got in like anime games in LA, were that were those just from like studio connections
Yeah,
too,
just
or
random. Yeah, just people who knew me being like, "Hey, you want to come in and do this?" And I'd be like, "Okay, yes, I do need money, so that'd be great."
which out of everything you did over there for anime, what do you think stands out the most?
Um, I really liked my character in Durarara,
Yep,
the Russian. That was really fun.
it was cool that you got to be in the Fate Stay Night movies too.
Yeah, it's nice to be a part of that franchise, but my character doesn't really do a lot. So like I feel like I'm always surprised that anyone even knows that I'm that I'm in it. But yeah.
And Tales of Berseria, that's kind of a bigger character too.
Yeah. Yeah, all the Tales stuff. I did that first one, the Tales of because I've done a couple of Tales games. There's the one where I played Elmel Marta. Is that
Exilia,
Berseria? That's Exilia.
Exilia,
Yeah, Exilia. That one I did before I ever had moved out there. That one was like a fun, random booking.
and when you did get Fire Emblem, was that also while you were in LA?
That is a really good question. Um, yes, I think so. Because when did it initially come out?
Well, for the mobile game, it's 2017.
Yeah, I was in LA for sure. Yeah. Mhm.
Do you think that you have more affinity for Aira Blue?
I mean, I really, again, I love them both because they're so different. So I love that I get to play very different roles. Um, Loot is more like me, I think. Um, I guess depending on the day and the context. Um, yeah, sometimes I find the more like military, serious roles to be a little bit difficult because I can be dry, um, and like nonplussed, but like I don't know, there's something about like the hardcore strict. I think it's a strictness. I can be chill, I can be whatever, like cool, whatever, but it's the seriousness. It's hard for me to like act that serious and take anything that seriously. Um, because I just am not like that in my life. Yeah, I have a tendency to skew more toward everything being everything is silly, everything is ridiculous. Nothing is real. Is any of this real? I don't think so. Um, yeah, weird
Were
answer.
you were, were you aware of the franchise before getting into it?
No, no, I wasn't actually. No, I hadn't heard of it beforehand.
Well, it sounds like based off what you've said here that even way before that you started voice acting that you were into anime.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, yeah. My brother and I, so this was back in the day when they still had Blockbuster.
Right.
Um, and so they had one in my town, and my brother and I found an anime shelf. They had like this tiny little shelf. It wasn't the full shelf. It was just it was about this big of a shelf. This part of it was like anime. And so the first thing I remember seeing was Battle Angel.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was the first one that I saw. And then we were big fans of Vampire Vampire Hunter D and Blood the Last Vampire and Hellsing. So like all the vampire ones we were really into.
It is cool that you even like later on got to end up in because I one of the big series that I grew up with was Tenchi Muyo, and I know you got to end up in the Magical Girl Susanoo.
Yeah,
Jerry.
yeah. No, that was really fun. That was really cool because I remember growing up and watching that too. I mean, honestly, the biggest like holy crap moment in my career was probably getting to do Dragon Ball Kai because
Yep.
I was such a Dragon Ball fan. Um, my now husband and I and like a bunch of our friends used to have like watching parties after school. We would all go to my now husband's house and watch Dragon Ball together. That's like just a thing. It was like a hangout thing that we did. Our first kiss was watching Dragon Ball Z. Um, like it has such a huge, has had such a huge impact on my life. Um, just in every aspect, like both just in friendship, in romantic relationships, in career. Like it infiltrated every part of my life. Um, so yeah, getting to work on Dragon Ball Kai and to be um War and Chiaotzu and getting to work on the games and stuff. There was one moment where so Chris Sabat had asked me to assistant direct for him on Dragon Ball Kai. And so there was a moment where I was directing Sunny Straight as Krillin, which was hilarious because it's like as if he needs my direction, right? Like he didn't need anything from me. It was just like, let me just get out of your way. um, but I was assistant directing and there was a moment when we were working on the Cell Saga, because that's my favorite. And I was just like, holy shit. If my 15-year-old version, like 15-year-old Brina, could see what I was doing right now, she would be over the moon, ecstatic, just like, wow, how crazy is that? Like, just so wild. We had taken a tour of Funimation as fans when we were in high school, and that's how I knew where it was, to begin with, and knew like where to go to ask how to audition and stuff. Um, so yeah, like it's crazy how far I have come, but it's also crazy how far anime has come because I remember when I watched it, it was like that's what weirdos watch.
Yep.
Like it wasn't like a cool thing. And it wasn't nearly so mainstream. Whenever I would tell people what I did, I often just lied because I got sick of having to explain like to explain what anime even is. No, I don't speak Japanese. Like I do the English dub. Yes, that is a job. Like just trying to describe like what it even means to be a voice actor and whatever was like crazy, but now I literally can just be like, "Oh yeah, I do English voices for anime." And then people will be like, "Oh wow, that's so cool. I love such and such show or whatever." Like it's so mainstream. It's so mainstream. It's wild. Wild.
You had that same feeling when you got to be in the Fruits Basket remake, or were you not really into the original series?
I actually wasn't that into the original series. I was excited to be a part of the remake mainly because Caitlin Glass is very good at knowing what I like. Like she knows what will entice me as an actor. So I really trust her I trust her casting and her opinion. So at the time I was not taking new roles. I was still very much like in momland. And I was just like, I don't want to do anything. But when Caitlin asked me to be a part of it, it was just kind of an immediate like, yeah, okay. Like you know my situation. You know that I don't want to be away from my house for a good reason. So if you're asking me to do this, this must be a really cool role. And it was. I'm so glad that I got to be a part of it. The show is gorgeous. And yeah, I really was not familiar with it before, but I'm glad that I am now. And I'm honored to be a part of the actual show. Yeah, the role was incredible. I was really lucky.
I did really love. I know it was around the same time. I did really love what you did with Chloe and Vanitas.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So few people ask me about that one.
Oh, really?
Um, Yeah, like hardly anybody has. But yeah, no, that was a good. I was really happy to get to work with David on that too. That was kind of a similar situation. Um, well, different, similar but different. I had never gotten to work with David, and I really wanted to. Um, and so that was kind of like that part of it. And it was, and I loved the idea of getting to play opposite Michael again because we hadn't got to do that in a while. Now we're doing it again all the time, uh, which is great.
For those that aren't aware, the story about uh, the arc in Black Butler that's most important to you because of what you were going through at the time.
Oh wow, yeah, another deep cut. Uh, yeah, so Book of Circus is what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I recorded Book of Circus, I was going through an ear issue. I didn't know what it was at first. I was just hearing phantom noises and like my anytime that more than one person was talking or if I was talking or singing, my ear would distort like a broken speaker and it would vibrate and it hurt. And I didn't know why. And I went to see an ENT and they were like, I don't know what's wrong with you. Like they couldn't figure it out. And then I like kept trying to go back to that same person and being like, no, something is wrong. And then eventually I went to uh, Dr. Wayne Kirkham, who has since retired, but I will definitely say I feel saved my life. He was the one who actually took the time to look at my ear because the other guy, like the first time that Dr. Kirkham looked at my ear, he was like, your ear is like caked in dried blood and I can't see anything. So we need to clean that out and then I can figure out what's going on. So I had to like go home and do eardrops for a couple days to soften it and then they cleaned it out and I had a hole in my eardrum, which is not that uncommon. But it sucks. Like I could it got to the point where I could hear my heartbeat. Like I could hear my own heartbeat. I couldn't be around more than one person at a time. I had to wear earplugs. Like it was like, I mean, I imagine it's, you know, it might be similar to people who have really, really bad sensory issues. But yeah, I like, I couldn't stand being in public places. I like had to isolate myself a lot. I was super depressed, especially like when I didn't know what was happening and I was essentially being told that I was crazy. Like, and I felt crazy. And so finally, so that was like when I first started getting the symptoms was in February. I didn't get my diagnosis until May. So it was like months of not knowing. And then I got my surgery to correct it in July. And then this was all in 2015, by the way, in July. And then it was 2 months of recovery. So it was 2 months of not being able to hear out of my ear. Um, but my uh my experience on the show was during all of that. Like, I think I had maybe, I can't remember. I so it was leading up to the surgery. We didn't record after I had surgery, I don't think. But it was so it was all of the really painful parts. Um, because the surgery was painful and the recovery was a little bit painful, but not like everything before. And so I was in a really depressed, isolated, anxious headspace, um, so disconnected from everyone. And literally, the sound of my own voice was painful. Like to hear myself made my ear vibrate and made that weird distortion sound constantly. So it was like torture. Like honestly, like recording that whole thing was physically torturous. But because it's so emotional. And at least gave me some kind of outlet. And it was like the only time that I was like around people. Um, and so it was like, I don't know, there's something about finishing like completing that series, and I'm proud of a lot of the work that I did on that, the whole series, but especially Book of Circus, because I wasn't even sure if I would be able to get through it. Um, but I did. I did, and it's some of my favorite work that I've ever done.
What are your thoughts so far on coming back for the new series?
It's so like I never thought that that would happen. I especially didn't think that it would happen alongside Spice and Wolf. Like I just the fact that they both came back at the same time and that it's me and Michael again, like it's surreal. Um, it's really cool. Like there's just, there's not a lot of times as an actor that you step away from a character for that long and then get to revisit them again. Like there's something really unique and special about the experience that I am so grateful to get to be a part of it. And yeah, like I don't, yeah, it's hard to put into words, but I'm glad that it's me and Michael. Like, I don't, there, like, to get to experience that with one of my closest friends is really cool. And for us to get to revisit characters that are some of our favorite characters of our whole careers, like, wow. Because it could be a lot worse, you know? It could be like, it could be characters that were like, oh God, thank God that's over. And then it comes back, but it's not the case with these. Yeah, it's incredible.
What you just said actually does make me think to ask, was there any um, anime that you had a major part in that you like wouldn't be thrilled about doing again if it came back?
I mean, there are characters that I like less than others, but like I don't really like to harp on it because I know that what I've learned is that just because it's not a character that speaks to me, that doesn't mean that it doesn't speak to someone else, you know?
Yeah,
Like they mean something to other people, and I don't ever want to demean that. And I'm always honored to do anything that brings people joy or peace or closure or whatever, like it helps them in any way. So even if it's a character that I don't necessarily like, it doesn't mean that it's not a worthy character, you know? Does that make sense?
yeah.
Um, but I remember whenever I directed Moon Phase, when I was just acting in it, I remember thinking like, oh my God, Kaoru is so like whiny and annoying. Like, God, I hate this character. But then when I stepped into it as a director and I saw her in the context of the show and saw how she played against the other characters, I was like, oh, actually her character's great and like serves a purpose. She just annoys me, but now that I'm the director, I see why I need her. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, again, it's like it's not really, I don't know, it's not up to me to decide what roles are worth going back for or whatever. Um, they're all worthy.
Regarding the album that you have coming out, have you been working on that for a long time?
Yes, I have. I've been actively working on the album. Okay, so I have an EP coming out. I'm going to be putting out two EPs. I'm in the process of putting out two EPs over the course of the next year. Um, my first single is going to be coming out next month. These are songs that some of them I wrote as long as like 20 years ago.
Oh wow,
Yeah, that I've just been sitting on for a long time, but I finally am at a point in my life where I was willing to ask for help. Because I think before I was always like in my head of like, oh no, I have to be the one to do it. I have to be the one to figure out how to like do all of the production and I have to do all the mixing and I have to do everything or else it doesn't count. And I don't know how to do that. I'm not good at those things. There are other people that are better at that. I'm good at songwriting and singing. Um, and so I finally like was able to let go of that ego part of me of feeling like I had to be the one to do all of it and just be like, you know what? No, I don't. I don't need to be the one to do all of it. I'm gonna have my friends, Will Kubley and Patrick Simon, do awesome stuff to these songs that I wrote and that I want to exist in the world. Um, so yeah, I'm really excited about it. Uh, I'll be doing like promotional stuff on my Instagram and everything. Um, yeah, we're getting close, and I'm definitely in the headspace right now of um, like imposter syndrome of like everything I do is shit. Like, why am I even doing this to myself? Like now that it's actually happening, I'm like, ah, what am I doing? Everyone's gonna hate it. Um, but you know, it's just my own anxiety. It's my own whatever. I think everybody goes through that when they do something as vulnerable as putting their art into the world. It's a vulnerable place to be. And I am trying to step right into it and go through it so that I can finally release these things that I've been sitting on for so long. Um, but yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be fun. I'm sure uh I'll be a, you know, just anxiety ridden mouse the entire time. Um, but we're doing it. That's all that matters.
Is it like a variety of different genres, or is it mostly in one or two?
We're having trouble trying to think of what our genre is. We came up with cinematic pop.
Okay.
That's our genre. Um, when I play my stuff for people, they usually reference like uh um My Brightest Diamond or Imogen Heap or sometimes Saint Vincent, or who's the other one? Regina Spektor. Um, those tend to be the ones I get the most, I think.
Well, for me, I don't know if you've heard this too, but I think some of the songs that you have out right now are kind of like Rachel Yamagata.
I haven't heard that one.
Okay. Oh, and I think that my favorite is the song that you wrote for the Ladies of the House movie.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I did that one with Chris Sabat actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh my gosh, yeah. The song that never actually made it into the movie. Yeah.
I don't know how often you talked about this, but since I didn't know about it before I saw your channel, the character that you made up that was like a super fan of Chris.
Yeah, Kagura 422, 1973. I think that's the number.
What?
Yeah.
How did that
Okay,
like idea come about?
so that came about because Chris was getting roasted at, I think it's Ohio Con. I think that's where they do the roasts. But he was getting roasted. I was asked to be one of the roasters. And so I created this character who is obsessed with Christopher R. Thabit. Um, and it was the first time that I used my lisp, which you might now recognize in another character. Um, but yeah, so I did the roast. Chris thought it was hilarious. He begged me to put it online, so I put it online, and then it just kind of it blew up a little bit, like because usually when I would post YouTube videos, it would be like 100 views, and like that's it. But this one got like a few thousand, and it was like, whoa, people like this character. And then a friend of mine and I produced a web series called Troubadours. Um, that was like about a group of kids, college kids, doing door-to-door singing for a different holiday every week. So like not typical holidays, like not Christmas. None of them are Christmas. The biggest holiday that we did was Halloween. But I used that character as my character. I stayed it, but her full name, her actual name was Kayla Bates. Um, Kayla just because I wanted something with a K for Kagura, and then I went Bates because I wanted like I was trying to go to like Bates Motel from Psycho, the movie Psycho. Um, but yeah, so yeah, and I did the Troubadours was with um oh my God, Rico Fajardo was the
Oh yeah.
lead in the show, yeah. Um, and a bunch of other great people, but as far as like this audience, I think Rico Fajardo would be the one that people would actually know. Um, but yeah, yeah, that's about it for Kagura.
What inspired you to do the cover the anime covers that you've done, or well, Chainsaw Blood in particular?
Chainsaw Blood in particular, I just really like the song. And I like the show. Like I was watching the show. Um, I remember when those auditions came out and when I read the premise of it, I was like, this sounds dope and this looks really cool. And so I like um I didn't read the manga, but I was like reading all the Wikipedia about it and like the fan wikis or whatever and I was like, God, this sounds really cool. And so I was excited to watch it whenever it came out and I loved it and I loved that song and I was like, I had just done Top Musica in Spanish and I was like, let's do another cover. Let's do it. And actually that and so the Chainsaw Blood and Top Musica, those are two covers that I did with my producer friends. And honestly, doing the covers with them was another like it felt like a no-brainer of like, why don't you guys do actual music with me? Like, help me do my actual original songs. That would be cool. So yeah, that's how that came about.
So is there a specific release date that you have for the EPs?
What's that?
Is there a release date you have for the new music coming up?
Not yet. It'll all depend on the day that we finally land on the first single coming out, and then it'll all be mapped out. But like, I have to get all of my um. We got our master in for the single, and now I have to like figure out the album cover, and then once we have that, then we'll know for sure the day, and then everything will line after that, which I'm sure will all be posted on my social media, my Brinakins Instagram, which is the only social media that I have now. I no longer have Twitter and I don't use Facebook. So yeah, Instagram it is.
Well, my final question is always asking, what do you want your legacy to be?
Oh my God. What do I want my legacy to be? Um, mm, like in the sense of like, what do I hope people learn from me kind of thing?
Usually people answer like as a person as and then also as an actor.
Uh, oh man, that's hard because the way I operate in life is that I assume that I will be forgotten fairly quickly. Like not in a bad way. Like I don't know. I don't think about myself as like being remembered in any way other than from my like very close friends and family. Um, if people remember my acting, that's nice. That's lovely. That would be really cool. But I don't really expect that. Um, yeah, I don't know. Just don't be sad about it. Like it's fine. Like when I die, I just died. It's fine. Move on. Like, I have had a really lovely life, a really beautiful life with a wonderful family, people that love me. Um, I've felt loved in my life. That's great. That's all I need. Like, let's go on with our lives.
Well, I'm sure that you've gotten a number of stories about how characters that you played saved people or things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of people come and tell me that, yeah, that certain anime and certain characters help them through really difficult times in their lives. When I hear that though, I don't really hear it about me. Like I feel like I'm just lucky enough to have been the vessel for that story. Like I think that it could have been anybody. Like and it took me a long time to like be comfortable with it because it used to make me really anxious when people would compliment me in that way. Um, but now that I'm able to like hear it and immediately switch it to like, it's not about me. It's not about me. This is about them and their experience in life. And I'm just lucky enough to have been a part of that in some way, but in reality, it has nothing to do with me. Like it has to be removed from me because otherwise I'm just like, I'm like, ah, why are you? No, that's not me. That has nothing to do. Like what? So instead of freaking out about it and being awkward and weird about it, it's more just like it's just an extension. I am an extension of this piece of art that was made, and I am in many ways the most accessible because all of the creators are in Japan. Like they don't, you know what I mean? Like as the English voice actor, I'm the most accessible part of this whole art piece that they're able to come to and thank. And it is my job as that actor of that role to that, accept their gratitude in a gracious way and in a loving way. It's just an extension. It's like the other part of the job. And it's an important part and it's a meaningful part. And I feel really lucky to be a part of it. Um, And I honestly love it when people come and tell me those stories. I don't want it to come across like I don't. I love it when people tell me those stories because it's, it's the whole reason why I do what I do. But again, at the end of the day, when I hear those stories, I don't hear it as like, I saved them. I didn't do anything. I was just really lucky to be in the right place at the right time and the right show for them. And I'm happy that it happened that way, you know?
Well, thank you. I'm glad that we got to do this.
What's that?
Thanks. I'm glad that we got to do this.
Oh, yeah, me too. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate you.
Hope you have a good rest of your day then.
Hey, you too, man.